once we realize that I'm not my parents, she's not her parents. The way you were raised is the way you were raised. But you're an adult. You're accountable for everything that you do now, not your parents. And it's the same thing for me. My parents, they raised me to think like this, but just because they raised me to think like that doesn't mean that that's the correct way to think. But we have to realize those rules are not for us.
Right.
We have to create our own.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. If you're joining us for the very first time, my name is Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined, as always, by my beautiful wife,
Tanya Coleman.
And like I said earlier, this is Marriage Matters. This is a podcast about all things relationships, primarily marriage, but we talk about a little bit of everything, so that's what we're all about. And as you can see, we have some very special people.
We're not alone
in
today.
the building on the podcast. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Rachel Garner.
And I'm Travis Garner.
Yeah. And we've been knowing the Garners for a few years now. Actually, I've been knowing Travis since college.
Yeah.
We sang in the McNeese Gospel Choir together. Shout out to the McNeese Gospel Choir, GC. You know what I'm saying? So that's where we met many years ago. His hair was black. I had hair.
Yes.
So now here we are with families, kids, and all of the such.
And dogs.
And dogs.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're a new dog family. So we're still getting our feet.
You may need to get some advice.
Yeah. And actually, so with Rachel, I guess we've been knowing Rachel for about 3-4 years, maybe.
No, longer than that.
It's been that long?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm not good with the year thing.
Because my sister
and that's what I was gonna say.
started at New Life, and then when they moved, I don't know, some years later, we joined. We joined New Life in 2010.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Wow.
it's been a really long time. Yeah.
Yes, I was gonna say. I think I met your sister first, which Rhonda and Myron, just a great couple.
Yeah.
Doing some big things. I think in the Houston area. So anyway.
Yep.
So we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's gonna be a fun podcast. So I just told them I wanted them to start out just telling us the story of the Garners. How did this love story come to be? So I think Travis said he was gonna tell it because he has the correct version of what happened, which I feel you on that because Tanya has a different version of how we met too. So
it's
go
all
ahead.
about perspective.
Go ahead,
Absolutely.
Travis.
About details. So let's see. I got to McNeese in '97. I met Rachel through friends of ours. My roommate, well, he wasn't even my roommate, my friend at the time. He was dating her first cousin, or they were talking, or whatever. And we met through them at McNeese on campus. That was '98.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been knowing each other since 1998. Around 99, I decided it was time for her to step her game up.
I like it.
And stop messing with these people that was wasting her time. So, I kind of approached her, I did the whole nice guy thing, just kind of, trying to get to know her. But she said that she wasn't feeling it at the time. So I said I had to step my game up and change it up a little bit. So I stopped talking to her, period.
Oh, he completely ignored me.
Ignored
Oh, wow.
And it worked.
Yeah.
I'm saying it works every time. Works every time.
So 2002, we got together, and we've been together ever since 2002, and we got married in 2005.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
It'll be 17 years in March.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Been
So
married.
you guys
Yeah,
not
you've
far
been married.
behind?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, y'all are close. Yeah.
So how close to the truth was that?
It was pretty accurate. He left out some details.
Mm-hmm.
I would say on my part, I will admit I was not very nice, but I learned my lesson. So.
Yeah, I mean, it turned out. Look at it. It turned out.
Yes, absolutely.
well.
And I said when I reconnected with him, he would visit me, and we were strictly friends. And I tell him this all the time. I prayed to God, and I said, if this is the man for me, show me, and he did. So
okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I guess we'll just start out, when it comes to marriage, because, like I said, on this show, we just like to give couples, aspiring couples, newlyweds, or if you've been in it for 50 years, we call tips and tricks. That's my term I've coined. Tips and tricks. I didn't coin it, but you know what I mean. What some things that work for us, and we're not saying that this stuff is going to save your marriage or it's going to work for you across the board, but we just like to share. Here's some things that work for us. So when it comes to your philosophy, if I could say that, what's your philosophy on marriage, and what has worked for you over the last 17 years?
You want to go first? I'll go first. I'll say two things. First, communication. If you don't have that and you can't tell your partner or significant other your feelings or something that you're dealing with, or it's not going to work. Not that it's not going to work, but you're going to continue to have problems if you don't communicate how you feel or what's going on. Because we're all dealing with past issues that you're bringing two people together, and they have past issues. If you don't communicate, then there's going to be issues that come about. One thing that we learned late, it's never too late, but one thing we did learn is prayer. So early in our marriage, we didn't really have a prayer life. We probably did separately, but we didn't talk about it.
Gotcha.
I always say, he was raised going to church every Sunday, a Baptist church. I was raised going to a Catholic church, which was totally different. They teach you about prayer, but it's more so repetitive prayer. Okay. So I really didn't know what I was praying for. I'm saying the Our Father, and that should fix everything. So we learned, and especially going to New Life, that a prayer relationship and learning how to pray and having a relationship with God definitely helps and gets you through some things.
Personally, for myself, I think that marriage is a choice and it's a decision. They kind of go hand in hand. So you chose to get married. You decided that you wanted to get married, but you have to choose that and decide that every day you wake up. If not, then it leaves gaps. It leaves space for things to intrude. Divorce rates are extremely high right now because a lot of people just feel that it's easier to get in and get out without making that commitment. The second thing for me, personally, is that, I've always heard, my parents and my parents' parents before her, that, when you get married, it's between you, your spouse, and God. So if you decide that you don't want to be married to that person anymore, you're also telling God that you're not honoring that commitment that you made. Now, of course, I understand there are circumstances, things, you definitely don't want nobody getting hurt if they're in an abusive relationship and things like that. Sure. But we're talking about everybody goes through something in a marriage. That's what the marriage is for. It's a connection. You working through each other. It's a helpmate. It's a spouse, partner, however you want to look at it. So for me personally, that's always been kind of my thing. We might go through some terrible things, but it's my decision that I want to stay and fix it with this person versus just giving up and being like, you know what, I go do it somewhere else. Because I'm one and done. Yes.
I hear that.
One and done. One and done. That's it. So I'm gonna make this work as long as I can make this work. And with that attitude, I just think for myself personally that it helps out. It helps me center myself when things get out of whack, get out of control. Also reminds me that I made a commitment to this person. So no matter what, I'm going to try to make sure on my behalf, I'm doing everything I need to do to make sure that our marriage lasts.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah. And I like that you said that because Tanya says that she always says, I choose you every day. Yeah. And I think people have to understand that because there are going to be some days where you may not feel like making that choice. But it's like understanding that, because it's not about the butterflies. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is. But what I'm saying is, if you have that mentality, it's like, I'm going to make the choice to choose my spouse every day, then it makes those days that may not, that you don't have the butterflies, like Alicia Keys sings about. It makes it so that you can get through those and say, you know, this is, marriage is a choice, and I like that, and I think we don't talk about that enough. It's not about just all of the pie in the sky stuff.
Right.
It's about the choice that you make every day.
I think a lot of couples live off of those high moments. You know,
Right.
when we're celebrating an anniversary, or we go on a vacation, or there's some kind of fabulous gift, or, you know, it's like people live off of those high moments, and then when things are pretty normal or they're challenged, it's like, I don't know if this is working,
Exactly.
if this is for me. It's like those moments they're great, they're good, but that's not real life.
Exactly.
You know, that doesn't happen every day. You know, everyone, we have a day to day, we have a normal, we have an assignment, we have a family, things have to be done. And so it's great when we can have those moments, but we can't live off of those moments. You know?
Yeah.
It might sound weird, but I do the opposite. Now, she gets mad at me, and she knows that I do it, but I tend to relive things, not to bring them up, but to look at it as like, we made it through this. So this next little bitty thing, we got it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
not hoping that anything else worse than that
Right,
comes up.
right.
Absolutely.
But, you know, we made it through that.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is nothing. Like, we got it. It's all right.
We can
It's
do our
okay.
stuff.
Yeah. You know?
And
Yeah.
I'll say, you know, I jokingly say it, but I'm like, couples in Southwest Louisiana, if you made it through 2020 and 2021, a pandemic, 2 hurricanes,
Yes.
a freeze and a flood, I mean, you good. You know what I'm saying? but you know, now one of the things that we do in our premarital counseling with our couples is we really try to drive home the fact. It's kind of like Taken with Liam Neeson. And remember when he told his daughter, he's like, look, you're gonna get taken. That's the bad news, but here, I'm coming for you.
Right.
So it's like we try to prepare our couples, like, you are going to have an argument. You are going to have a disagreement. Something's gonna happen. It's just life. Things are it's not gonna be perfect. There's gonna be something you're not gonna feel good. Somebody's gonna say something. Somebody's gonna do something. It's going to happen. I know you think he's sweet and she's sweet and oh, we're so in love and it'll never happen to us. But I'm telling you, it's going to happen. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Here's how and that's what I guess even this podcast is about. And that's why I don't like to just talk about the good stuff. I want people to know, hey, you know, last week we had a disagreement.
Right.
You know, and here's what we did to get through that.
Right.
Because couples need to know.
Absolutely.
You know, like Mike Tyson, what he say? Everybody got a plan until they get hit, until they get punched in the mouth. You know, and it looks good. It looks sexy from the outside.
Right.
But you gotta know how to make it through
Right.
the downs.
Right.
You know. So I want to say, you talked about communication, Rachel, and most of the times when we do counsel couples, that's like the number one thing that comes up. It's like I said, we ask them, you know, what do you need help with? And they say communication. So I want you to just kind of talk about what does communication mean to you, and what does that look like?
To me, it was hard for me to be vulnerable in the beginning, and once those you're looking at me, once those walls come down, I think for me it was easier for me to communicate, because I grew up in a family where you don't talk about the hard things. So I mean, I don't know if I feel awkward saying this on camera, but I was sexually abused when I was probably in middle school. So I really think that kind of made me hold back a lot with men in general, and saying, okay, I don't want to share my feelings because I've been hurt, because I don't feel like I was protected. So how are you going to protect me?
Yeah.
So kind of shutting off those feelings and being hard, was not getting me anywhere because it was causing problems in the beginning for us. Okay, so I'm not going to hurt you. You can open up to me. You can talk to me about all the hard things. I'm here for you. So that kind of helped me a little bit because raising teenage daughters, you don't want them to mimic the mistakes that you made. You want them to be able to communicate and be open as well, So and I guess depending on the person, because he's very easy to talk to, it helps. So.
Yeah, I think, I left out a little part that I tease her about all the time whenever we first got together. But in actuality, it happened. I told her before we even started dating, I said, I'm going to marry you. And it wasn't game. It wasn't none of that. I just,
you knew.
Something came over me and I just told her point blank, this is what's going to happen. So, and we weren't talking, we weren't dating, we were just friends. We were cool, whatever. And I think about that when it comes back, because as she's sitting here explaining it, I'm thinking about what happened. So she was that way in the beginning, but I was the total opposite. I would let her talk and focus completely on her, but I didn't talk. I didn't say anything about my life personally or anything else because that wasn't the focus. My focus was on you. And it wasn't until we actually got together that the roles flipped and then I became the problem because it was, okay, now what's going on with you?
Right.
And I'm not going there because like her, when you grow up, you have things happen. Nothing happened to me like what happened to her in that sense. But I think I'm not going to say people deal with things differently. And when you deal with something the incorrect way, it has repercussions on people around you. And I grew up in that type of environment. So, you think you're doing the right thing, but it might not necessarily be the right thing because people and your children are handling it in an incorrect way. And as a child, sometimes you don't want to necessarily go to that person and say, hey, especially, traditional Black families, dude, you're messing up. Because that don't work, especially with older parents. So it was like, okay, just hold it in. Just hold it in. When I hit 17, I was out. I left, never went back home. So I was dealing with those types of issues. And my focus more so, like I said, I knew there was something, she always says I have discernment on a lot of people, a lot of things.
Yes.
I didn't recognize it as such until, we started getting to church and she would always call it out. But I knew something. She would try to give off this hard image or whatever, but I knew she was soft. She was soft. So, and that's what I would aim on. And that's why it was so easy for her to talk to me because I already knew it was more there than what she was giving off. And every time she would ask me, we had this thing, she like, why do you love me? Why you want to be with me? And I would tell her all the things that she didn't want to put out there all the time. I said, you're soft. I was like, not soft as being, as a negative term, but soft as you're an inviting person. You're warm, like you're loving, you're caring, but you don't want to give that off. But I see it. I see through what you're giving. So that's how I think we interacted with each other to get to the point of where marriage happened. Once marriage happened, then it's a whole nother ballgame because I don't care who you are. She is not that person you're dating.
Yeah.
When you get married, she
on.
changes.
Come on.
Not you. She changes.
Oh, she changed. Oh, okay.
There'll be a disclaimer at the end.
I think we all change. We all change and evolve.
Right.
Yeah.
So I it's unfortunate. Rachel, you talked about your experience, but so many young girls, and I can only speak from my personal cultural experience, but a lot of Black young girls have had that experience. And I think it does, and young men as well. But it does force you to put up this wall, this boundary, and just again, like I said, I'm not. This is not a. I gotta stop apologizing for that because it's truth, right?
Right.
But even we as Black people as a whole I think we've had to deal with so much stuff that a lot of times that's why we don't talk about it. That's why we put up these because it's like it's a defense mechanism, like you said. So from what I'm hearing, it's like I know you had that, but it sounded like you also did, Travis, especially once you guys got married. How did you guys help each other? And I know you talked about vulnerability, which is a scary word for a lot of people.
Yes.
Even
Especially
the funny
men.
thing, especially the men,
Right.
especially in marriage, and you wouldn't think, I say this all the time, and I'm like, look, okay, we're married, so it's not a shocker, but we have sex, and that's a pretty vulnerable position to be in.
Right.
But yet, still, there's some things we can't even talk about,
Right.
even though we experience that level of vulnerability with each other. There's some things that we would hold back from each other. So could you guys talk about a little bit, how did you help each other? I know you mentioned it a little bit, Travis, but talk about how did you help to each other to let those walls down?
Right.
Well, first of all, on something I just want to add to something you just said, like you're talking about sex being vulnerable, but it's so advertised now. It's not necessarily that vulnerability that maybe you were raised as, you thought about. Now it's just a feeling. It's just it's natural.
Yeah.
So it's not, you don't have to be really vulnerable to do it because it's something that you want to do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I
So
see that.
at that point is the stage. But when you get married and when you become sexual here with that person, then you see that where that vulnerability comes in. And, but like you were saying, I'm trying to figure out for us. So as far as my part, as a man, being vulnerable was never something that you put out there.
Right.
It's always you the protector, you the provider. You can't show weakness. If you show weakness, she's going to find somebody else. So that was always my thing. It's like, I don't have feelings about this. I don't have feelings about that. My number one thing is do your thing. I don't care.
Yeah.
Do your thing. I don't care. And honestly, new life saved my life and it saved our marriage.
Absolutely.
And it's things that we've heard growing up, but it was never explained the way that it's explained here. And it's very important that you can read the Bible all day long. But if you don't have an explanation for how to apply it to your life, you're just reading the Bible.
Sure.
You might get some revelations, but if you don't know how to pray to get those revelations, if you don't know how to read it for what you're looking for, then it just becomes a repetitious thing. And like I told her, I read my Bible, but I don't read it every day. I'm just being honest. I don't read it every day. But when something comes up and I see something coming up, I say, okay, I see you coming. Let me get the word for what I need to handle this, because this is not about to invade. This is not about to become an issue for us. When I pray on that subject and I get the word for that subject, and that's what I do throughout the week. And like I said, it's for me. I know where to go get it, and I go get it. And I try to do the same thing with our marriage. If I see it coming, I try to, and she said, I zone in on it. And that's the only thing I focus on until it's fixed.
That's good.
When it's fixed,
So I guess you're saying that it's a part of that vulnerability came just from the receiving of the word and allowing the word to really change your heart and open up. And I will definitely agree with you on that about, I'm the provider, I'm the man, and I always said, if I show fear, then how is she going to be confident in me? But what I found out is that's what she wants to know, my fear. She wants to know all of my deepest dark. And I told her, I don't know if you want to go that far. But she wants to, and it makes her feel closer to me when I'm able to share. And that's something I had to get over, that macho image, and allow her into that space, because I don't care, and I'll let you go after this church, but I don't care what you say, bro. I know there's some time in your life where you are shaking in your boots and you don't know what to do, and you you are at a loss for words. Look, you don't have to. One of the things I love about marriage is you don't have to do it alone.
Right.
You can let them in and take on some of that.
So it's two things. Like, I agree with everything you just said there, and I'm speaking for myself, but it might be for other people too. But my thing was, I don't want to give you anything that you can use against me.
Oh wow, yeah.
You
So
know?
it's a protective
Yeah.
measure.
So like I said, I didn't let her in on a lot of things about my life. So me giving you aspects of things that hurt me. What if
That's
this
good.
don't work out?
Yeah.
You know, what if this? Because I've seen so many relationships where as soon as it go bad, dude, she done put your whole life story out there.
Yeah.
Now everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Your weakest moments, your best friend now knows about.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was those type of situations that I was just like, I learned from other people. Like, nah, this is not about to happen. And it's so funny because, you know, when we first started out, you know, it was a group of
I
friends.
knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah, well,
I mean, but it's true.
yeah. So it was a group of friends and stuff, and we were going to a particular church, and we kind of I was going to a particular church with these people, and things were happening, and I backed away from that church. I was like, I can't deal with it. Dude, I came the biggest pariah. Like, these are people that I considered family, and they kind of backed away. It's like, nah, dude, you doing the wrong thing. I was like, okay. And we that's when we were together, we were talking, and then, you know, kind of just, it took off from there. But everybody was like, oh, y'all living in sin, y'all doing this and that. I mean, yes, we were having premarital sex, so we were. I'm just being honest. But it wasn't like I was doing 8,000 different things. This was the person that I wanted to be with. And it was like when they saw that we decided to move in together before we got married, and that was the next big thing. And I'm like, all these people that were sitting there talking about us, they got married quickly and whatever. And then the next thing you know, these people are not together anymore. The church dissolved with a big disaster. So I'm like, this is not conducive to what we're supposed to be doing. But I knew at that point, this was something that was supposed to be.
Yeah. And so before you go, Rachel, I just want to pull from what Travis said. You know, for the ladies watching, one, we say this all the time, that trust is built in drops and lost in buckets. And one surefire way to cause your husband or your man or your mate or whatever, your significant other, to stop being vulnerable with you is when you use what he shared against you or against him.
As a weapon.
Yeah, as a weapon, you know. And if he cries on your shoulder at night, and then you turn around and, you know, you old weak blankety blank blank, you know, mama's boy, well then you can forget about that ever happening again. So just, you know, whatever we, and that goes both ways, whatever we share with our spouses or whatever that relationship is, that's us.
Right.
There are some things that, like Tanya said, we reserve for us, and nobody knows about that except for us. So
So I have a question for Rachel. How did you, I guess, create that safe space for your husband to be able to open up to you? And it sounds like he had to do that for you initially, and then there was a time where you had to also do that for him. How did you create that?
For me, it was a comparison. I know you're not supposed to compare, but what I had been through with dating and being raised by the father that I was raised with, he set a high standard. And when I noticed the things that he did and how he was similar to that, then I knew that I could open up to him and let my guard down a little bit. And that helped, because if you see what other people are going through around you with, you know, people come to you when they see you with somebody they think is stable. You know, they come to you like, okay, how do you get Travis to do this? Well, I don't get him to do anything. Like, he wants to do that. You know what I mean? You can't force somebody to do something.
right.
It has to be something that they want to do. And my dad was the same way when growing up, how the relationship was with my mom. And they're still together. They'll be married 50 years this year. And I've seen, you know, them go through hard times. I mean, that's life. But the way he handles her sometimes, it's like I want that too. So a lot of I had to go to God and say, you know what, you can't keep shutting him out because it's going to keep causing problems. And you are trying to set an example for 3 girls that you're raising to find somebody like this too. So you kind of got to let your guard down a little bit. And, you know, I wanted to have him. And I think this all the time, I want to be married to a man like my dad, but I can't be my dad at the same time. And I was trying to do that too, be the man in the relationship, but I'm not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's good.
That is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you created the environment, and it sounds like both of you did.
Yeah,
and,
work together.
And here's the other thing I want you guys to know and understand. I mean, this is 17 years.
Yeah.
And not to say it's going to take you 17 years, but what I am saying is, you know, this is a process. You know, the Bible says that the two shall become one. And that becoming happens over a lifetime. I mean, Tanya and I have been married 20 years and we're still becoming. But my point is like, if you're not having that level of communication, if you're not having that level of vulnerability, well, then you start by just creating an environment, you know. And I know one of the things that Tanya does really well is allowing me that space, because she knows I'm an inward processor, and she knows when there's something off, right? So she'll say something like, "Hey," she'll ask me what's wrong, and of course my answer is going to be nothing.
Always the answer.
Yes.
But she knows that it's not nothing. So she'll, you know, she may ask me, but she's not like, "Tell me what's wrong, babe. You got to tell me." So she gives me that space, and she'll say something like, "Hey, you know, whenever you're ready to talk about whatever that is, you know, we can talk about it." And I've learned, you know, it may take me a couple of days, but then I eventually say, "Okay, I'm ready to talk now." And then we'll have that conversation. But I really like what you were saying, Rachel, is creating that space. And it sounds like it was first built off of knowing that you guys could trust each other. And like I said, that doesn't happen. It's not going to happen the first week.
No.
You know, how long did you guys date before you got married?
Well, like I said, we've known each other since '98, and basically that was a whole flirting situation up until 2002.
Yeah. So
And-
we were together 2 years before we got married.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even my point is even that 2 years, because I mean, there's something about when you become married, there's like another level of, I'm not going to say that that kind of vulnerability and communication can't happen when you're dating, but it's like when you get married.
I don't think you can.
You always say, that's what I say, I don't think you can.
I don't think you can.
And I totally agree with that, because it's like, I don't know, you probably remember that. I had like an epiphany, you know, like when you get in the limo, when you get married and you're bringing to your reception, it's just you two. And I was like, I can't believe we just got married. Like it instantly felt different.
I still say that. I'm like, yo, we married, got a house and 2 kids.
Yes.
Like, when did all this happen? You know?
Yep.
But yeah, I agree. So my point is, guys, it's a process.
It is.
But here's the key, is you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You got to start. And here's the other part. Somebody has to initiate this.
You got to start here, though.
Yeah.
And that's good, too.
It has to start.
Gotta renew
because
your
if you
mind.
don't
Yeah.
decide,
Yeah.
if you don't decide that this is what you want to do, like you can't I'm not gonna say names, but there are people that I know that you can't do something out of obligation.
Sure.
Oh, that's so good.
You can't
Yeah.
do something
Yeah.
because you've been together this long, or because you know one parent or some tragic thing happens and that person was with you, so now that person is the person that you want to rely on when that person might have just been there for that moment. So it's a decision that you have to make for that person and for yourself, but you still can't control what the other person is thinking. And y'all have to get together and figure that out. That's the hardest part. It's like, that's the hardest part of dating, is finding out the truth. You would like for that vulnerability to happen during dating,
Right.
but I mean, God is going to have to reveal that to you.
Yeah.
You can't reveal that for yourself.
It's almost like marriage earned you that level of vulnerability with that person. You know, it's kind of like something you have to make that commitment first before you're able to be that vulnerable. And I find just talking with couples who are dating and stuff that they want things to happen instantaneously. Like I should be able to depend on this person like this. And I'm like, but y'all married.
Yeah.
Like you're not there yet.
Right.
You know, you want this person to be all of this for you, you know, but you've been dating 6 months.
Right. And you don't know what that other person has been through and what they're bringing to the table. You know, absolutely.
I think we have to, I don't know if it's just generational, you know.
I think some of it is.
It's that instantaneous thing, you know, that people want, and not realizing that it takes some work, it takes time, it takes some longevity. And now longevity is not everything. Like you just said, I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago. Longevity in marriage is not everything, because sometimes people do stay married because they feel obligated. Or, you know, we came together in a tragic or trauma situation. And so this has to be the person that I'm connected to for the rest of my life. Well, that too can be unhealthy. So we have to make sure that we're connecting with a person that is healthy for me, and I'm healthy for that individual, and together we can build something, you know. And we still have to go through a process.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, y'all been married close to 20 years. We've been married 17, but there are things that when we're alone and we're talking about that, we discover something new about that person that you never knew. I mean, even when he said that, like, when we first met, everybody called him a nickname at McNeese. And I thought that was his name. I never knew that was his real name. And when he told me his real, I was like, that's really your name? Like, I had no clue. I was
Did the real name fit? Since you had got used to the nickname?
No. I still can't get used to his real name. It sounds funny because my cousin that introduced us, she came visit some weekends, and she still calls him by that nickname. So when I hear it, you know, everybody's looking there like, who is that? And even my grandfather, he passed away, he called him that nickname. So I like to hear it every now and then, because everybody called him Rome.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, the nickname came with the persona, so of course I had to.
Got you.
So I was like, Travis, that's your name? That's weird.
I still have my nick. Like when I go home to Fenton, I mean, everybody still calls me Papa.
He's Papa.
Yeah.
You know,
I've heard your mom say that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, everybody calls me Papa, and you know, I don't know if some people may not even know my name is Glenn. I don't know, but so I feel you on that. So
And see, I'm from Lafayette area, so I'm a different name there too. So only my close family calls me by my real name.
Wow.
That's funny.
So definitely a process, guys. And so, you know, one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about is how, you know, that it's a process, but, you know, you kind of mentioned it. You come from a family that had one set of morals, one set of beliefs, one way of doing things. How you dealt with money, how you dealt with kids, how you dealt with each other. Travis, same thing for you. You came from this totally different, even though I'm pretty sure there were some similarities, but there's still different stories. So, and then not only that, then you deal with personalities, you know. So, you know, one of you may be more extrovert, one be introverted. So it's like all these different things. How do you guys, or how have you and how are you now adapting or blending that together?
You go.
Okay. Well, I believe for us, I'm kind of an amoeba. I can blend in anywhere. I'm kind of easygoing, but then there are things that I like. There are things that I want. There are things that I'm not going to do. I kind of established those things kind of early on. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it was bad, but it is what it is. And I think for us, once we realize that I'm not my parents, she's not her parents. The way you were raised is the way you were raised. But you're an adult. You're accountable for everything that you do now, not your parents. And it's the same thing for me. My parents, they raised me to think like this, but just because they raised me to think like that doesn't mean that that's the correct way to think.
Right.
And we had to have several conversations about raising kids. Well, why do you think like this? Why do you do this? And it became so inflamed sometimes. It's like, dude, why am I with you? Like, why? So we can't agree on this. Why are we together?
Right.
Like, we're talking about raising kids, but we can't agree on it.
Right.
But we have to realize those rules are not for us.
Right.
We have to create our own.
There you go. That's
There you
good.
go.
We have to create our own. So once we start realizing that,
Love it.
and we talked about things like, hey, look, I don't like this. I see you point. I'm going to try. But I need you to try and meet me this way on this part. There's an aspect of that situation that I do not care for at all. I don't think I ever will. But I will try to see it your way, but I need you to try to see it my way. And once we started doing that more consistently, I think that helped us out.
Oh, absolutely. That was a big thing. So I grew up a certain way, you know, raising a 2-parent household. It was just me and my sister, but my dad wasn't really emotional. You never saw that emotional side, and there wasn't a lot of discipline. So, I mean, and we weren't bad children.
Sure.
So I didn't know what discipline was. So I just felt, you know, we weren't bad kids, so everything he did was right. You know, my dad he'll say I love you, you know, in passing really quickly, but his way of showing love was through gifts. Like, I'll buy you whatever you want. Like, that's it. That's how I, you know, so I thought, okay, well, that's how you show love. That's, you know, not that we bought our kids everything, but I didn't know how to parent, because even though my parents were parents, we went to school, we made good grades, we didn't get into trouble. So that's how it's going to happen. But when things come up, you're like, okay, I don't know what to do. So him saying that, even though that's how we were raised, doesn't make it right. And you think, you know, that's the house you lived in, that's the right way to be because nothing happened to you.
Yeah.
But that's not true. We had to come up with our own parenting style to be able to get to that half point, because I mean, I know I had a child before we got together, and Gabe was totally different. You know, most people say, well, you know, you bring in a child into a relationship, he's gonna rebel because that's not his dad, but he's the only male figure that he was raised with besides my dad. So he didn't really go through this period where he didn't have a father. So that was never an issue, and we never made that the kids didn't know that he had a different father. They thought Gabe is our brother, you know.
That's amazing.
So they still think that, even though they're older. But it's like there was no difference made, but he had to show me, because it was hard for me, the discipline part, and saying, okay, I need you to have my back when I'm disciplined, because if they see us divided, they know right where to sneak in, and they know that weak point. So that took us a while to get there, but we've conquered it. I mean, and there's still issues that come up, and when they do come up, okay, let's go talk,
Absolutely.
because there's some issues coming. But you know, and it's and I know people say, oh, it's no different raising girls and boys. It's totally different. Totally different.
I hear.
Well,
We only have girls.
We don't
Yes.
have girls.
Yes.
So, and that's another thing that, you know, we have in common. Right now, you guys have all girls in the house.
Yes.
And I don't have any sons physically. You know?
Right.
But I always tell our girls, though, I always tell them, I'm always on your mother's side. So no matter what happens, and even, and I know this may sound a little ridiculous or wrong, but this is how we do it. It's like, even if she's wrong, I'm still on her side.
And that's what we had to come to do, because we weren't doing that in the beginning. You know, they would come to me and like, why is Daddy so mean? And I'm like, well, Daddy is mean. And they were like, ooh, we got another one on our team.
But Mama did say you was mean.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So now that we have learned how to say, hey, we're on our own team.
Right,
Y'all
right.
on that other team.
Mm-hmm.
It has helped tremendously.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, so like I came from a 2-parent household as well. My mom was my Bible school teacher. She was a real teacher in her profession. My dad worked for the post office for a majority of his years till he became injured. But he was home, you know, he was there all the time. So I lived my life through sports. Like majority of my life, I was on a basketball court, a baseball diamond, a football field, swimming pool, something. And that's what I used to escape things that I was dealing with. So I use a lot of sports psychology when raising children and dealing with children. Because I just think about it's a team situation. And their term of mean is really not, it's basically, I'm just not letting you do what you want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I'm the mean person.
Yeah.
But as long as I'm doing what you want to do,
Right.
I'm the great person.
Right.
Because there will be times like, you know, they'll come, Daddy, why is mama tripping? I'll be like, hey, I don't know. Remember, I was mean, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now it's just like, you know, now they understand, like, ain't no point in telling them because she gonna go into, and I tell her, I say, guess what? I know everything y'all do because by noontime, I already know everything y'all done this morning. And it's like, and I realize that it's a little bit more difficult for her, and I understand her reasoning why, because of a relationship that she wants to keep with her girls to keep the communications open.
Sure.
And girls can be finicky. They can, once they think that you're not for them, they shut down. So I'm just like, you know what? I want to be that person. But then again, I really don't, because I really don't want you telling me everything.
Right.
I just to be honest. I think I can handle it, but I really can't handle it.
Right.
You know, I try. I believe it, dude.
And it's a generational thing because, I mean, my parents, my dad is 70 and my mom, she'll be 68 this year. So it's a generational thing. Like the things that the kids are going through now.
Right.
We didn't go through those things at the kids. We didn't have social media in high school.
We didn't have all this technology.
Exactly. So it's totally different how we're raising children. And I want them to have a better relationship than I had with my mother.
Sure.
And then my mother was there, which is different.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they grew up in the 60s, which was different.
Right.
So it's definitely hard. And for relationships to go from having 0 children to 1, it makes a world of
Changes
difference.
everything.
Changes
It changes
you
everything.
You find out things that you didn't know about that person, and then it makes it easier for you to want to give up.
And I think the other thing, as far as, since I guess we're on children in marriage now, is basically whenever you deal with parenting, I think it is important, especially nowadays, transparency be evident. So, you know, I kind of came from a household where I talked to my mother pretty much about everything. I didn't talk to my father about everything. And the only reason why is because it seemed like he set a standard of, like, he never did anything wrong, ever. But then as you get older, then you start figuring out, and family members start dropping bombs, and you're like, okay, dude, you're fraud. I'm like, so, you know, it's just like, but I understand his method for that then, but it doesn't work now.
No.
It doesn't work now because, we didn't have pictures of you doing that stuff back then, so nobody was there to you know, debunk that story you just told. And then it's like, okay, well, Daddy didn't never do this, so I guess I should never do this. But that's not the case. And I tell my daughters, like, you know what? When I went to McNeese, I was playing football. It's like my sports career wasn't the way that I wanted it to be because I was being rebellious about something that my father did that I didn't agree with. But, you know, there was no way for me to get back at him. So I just did the opposite of what he told me to do all the time. And I tell him all the time, I said, that affected me more than it affected him because his life is already there. He's established. I'm trying to get established. So when I say, and it set me back to where I could have been further ahead in life, but it's like, I don't regret it for the fact that God brought me to where I am right now. And I know that. Had I just done that, I might have thought, well, I did it all on my own. So you go through things. I'm not going to say God allows things to happen that way. We allow things to happen because we don't listen.
Right.
We make choices.
And then God allows us to get back on the right path because he's always there saying, okay, this is what we need to do to get back on track. So that's how I look at my life. And that's what I try to explain to them. Hey, look, you messed up. I might flip out. And I tell them, I will flip out. But once I realize and calm down, we gonna talk about it. We gonna get it right. I don't love you any less. I'll do whatever you need.
Yeah.
Do whatever you need to get you back on track.
That's good.
And it's like, and once we kind of got that relationship going, I think that helps us out. But it's like, you really have to be transparent and stop giving children, because they're intuitive.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to find out.
Right.
And they know.
Yeah.
They automatically know. And I don't know if it's through DNA, but they know. They know when you're not telling the truth, and they know when you are.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's just kind of like, just be honest, be open. I understand you don't want to share everything, and maybe not everything at too early of an age.
Exactly.
But at some point,
Yeah.
because you got to realize they're dealing with real things.
Real things, and dealing with them sooner than
Than
we
we
did.
were.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you said you may flip out. I always tell the girls, listen, I'm a mama. So initially,
Yeah.
I'm gonna respond
I'm gonna-
like a
yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
But give me a minute. I will get myself together, and we will figure it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, this has been great. We're gonna kind of wrap up here, but before we leave, I really want maybe each of you to share something, just maybe a nugget, or I had wrote it down. The question I really wrote down is is there anything, if you could go back at your wedding day and have a conversation with yourself, what would you tell yourself, knowing what you know now? So you could answer that, or you could just give just a nugget or something that's working for you guys, or something that didn't work for you guys in the past 17 years.
That's a loaded question, dude. If I could go back to my wedding day, I would tell myself to smile more. Don't overanalyze. And just be.
That's good. That's good.
I like it. Smile more.
Yeah.
Don't overanalyze and just be. Just the smile more thing. I mean, that's so simple, but it's
hard. I'm saying it from my standpoint, because my thing is, I'll take on anything that comes in the house because I feel I have to. Because if I can't do it, not to say that she can't. It's the thought of it is not even about her. Is that I have to do it.
yeah.
It's like, I have to do it so that she doesn't.
Yeah.
I have to do it so that her life is easier, because that's what I feel I'm here to do. I'm here to make sure that everybody has what they need. So sometimes I realize it because the girl said, Dad, why you? And a lot of times I'm thinking, like, I could be watching a basketball game, but I'm thinking about 10 things down the line that I know is coming.
Yeah.
I know bills are coming. I know this is coming. I know this is coming. They need this. I'm thinking about Christmas time. I need to start saving here so that we can do this. And it's just like,
preach.
yeah. So it's like, it's always a constant thought of what I need to do to make sure we're prepared.
Yeah.
And I don't leave God out of it. I don't want to say that.
Sure.
And I try to explain that to him all the time, because we talk about it. It's just like, you're doing too much. It's not that I'm doing too much, and I don't leave God out of it. God is in everything. It's just the way I'm built.
Yeah.
If I'm not thinking ahead or preparing, because there was a point in time where I didn't think ahead, and I got put behind.
Yeah.
So I don't want that to happen, especially now that I'm in charge of other people.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Rachel, what about you?
For me, I'm going to say, let go and let him be the man. A lot of times, generations have taught women that if they didn't have a father in the household, they have to be the mom and the dad. But you don't have to be. Just be the married woman and let him provide. If he can't do something, then God's going to do it, or vice versa. I in the beginning, I think that I was trying to be on his same level when I needed him to be the protector and, not me, emasculate him. So, and another tip is when you get married for the marriage and not the wedding.
That's so great. Yes.
A lot of people go into debt and they want this big show, and we had a huge wedding and we probably didn't spend over $2,000 because we did everything ourselves because we wanted a marriage.
Yeah.
And I love saying this. This is a quote that I think I heard from.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at Rachel.
Okay, look, you're giving me the side.
No, I'm looking at Rachel.
Strike break.
Exactly. Look, I was gonna say that's not our testimony. That is not our testimony.
But listen, we didn't go in debt. We paid for it out of our pockets. It was paid for.
But I'm
before
just
we
saying.
said
I always say, if I could go back, I'd be like, man, that's a down payment on the house. You know what I'm saying?
True that.
But hey, I told her this is the only time I'm doing this.
Right.
So whatever you want,
do
go
it
ahead
right.
and do it.
Yep.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine.
Go ahead.
I always tell people, I know it sounds like a cliche, but when you bring up the word divorce every time you get into a fight, then that puts that on the table, and that's an excuse to do it. So don't ever bring it up. Right. That you can resolve anything.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's one thing that we decided early on. We just like because we both come from families that experience divorce, and we just said we are not, for us. We're not. We're gonna do whatever it takes to work through that, and it's possible to work through it. So.
Yeah, we would say initially that divorce is not an option,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like no, it really is an
It's an
option.
option.
Yeah.
But we're taking it off
the table.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And that's kind of a part of the thing that I said earlier. So as far as myself is concerned, and I put it on me. I preface it for me because this is a decision that I have to make every day. I'm sure she does, or she does something similar to it. And especially for men, you have to make that decision because there's a lot riding on you if you're doing things the biblical way, and you are considered the head of the household. So if you are looking for an escape, everybody else in the house is. So you can't look for an escape, and that way your children won't, your wife won't, the dogs won't. So as long as I'm not making that available, or because they can pick things up and sense things, if you think I'm getting ready to run, then you're going to act accordingly.
Yeah.
And that's when things change. So that's why I said, when you wake up, you have to make sure. It might not be perfect. You might not be feeling it that day. You might not be feeling it throughout the day. But if you make the decision that this is what we're going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, then it will be done.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you guys so much. This has been awesome. I know we could talk about this all night long, and we'll have you guys back if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
We're gonna do this again, but we just want to thank Travis and Rachel. There are couples. We always say that every relationship is different. So I'm really leery about the whole couple goals, and all that.
Please don't make us go.
I hate that.
But you guys are one of those couples. When we see you guys, we can see that you are doing the work to sustain what you have. And
Appreciate
I'm like,
that.
those people right there, they are right by me, and we need that so much. Today, we need couples who are letting people know it's possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And not that we're perfect, but it's possible to have a not perfect, but a thriving marriage and a thriving family. So I just want to thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. Just keep in mind, make sure that you're following us on Facebook, on Instagram, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Marriage Matters 0526. And you can also catch, if you're watching this podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, you can also listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Anchor. And pretty much every digital outlet that has podcasts that's out there. So is there anything that you guys want to share? Contact on Facebook?
I just want to give a little plug for Focusing Men Forward, podcast for men.
Awesome.
We got a couple on there right now. You can check it out. We just starting out, but we're trying to get it going.
There you go.
Focusing Men Forward.
Focusing Men Forward.
Focusing Men Forward. Okay.
Awesome.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, man. So this has been another episode of Marriage Matters.
Yes.
So this is Glenn and Tanya Coleman reminding you that your marriage matters. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.